This was originally released on our Those Guys Play channel. Links in the description box down below. Hey guys, it's Matt here, and I'm here along with John, and we are doing another video where we take a look at some rare / expensive games in John's collection. I feel weird using the term rare because any game could be unrared if you end up finding a storage unit with like tons of them sealed.
Guarded by top men, or
yeah,
you dig past the ET cartridges in the landfill.
Exactly. So that's why, but they are at this point looking at the numbers right now, because I usually don't like talking about prices either, but obviously for a video like this, you're gonna talk about the prices. So these are expensive games in your collection, PS1. Now, if we talked about this a little bit in the last video we did for the Dreamcast, which we'll have that in the description box down below. So John, you are a man of a certain age. No, but seriously though, 20 years ago, don't worry about my phone. 20 years ago, you were getting these games from like now defunct shopping malls around your area. We're not talking about where specifically, but the point is that now they're all defunct. We've stood the test of time, though. We're not defunct. We're still here. And and you got these games for really cheap. Like some of these were not, like out of all these games for PS1, none of these were brand new, right? You got all these in the bargain bin for the most part, yeah?
Yes. Actually,
okay.
yeah, I'm taking a look now. These were all used.
No, I say that because with the Dreamcast ones, some of them were brand new, or close to, like price-wise. But these were all like 20 and under, right? Mostly. There was, even if they were like 30.
Yeah, the most expensive I think would have been like 25, 30 around there.
All right, and obviously these have gone up in price dramatically. Now I didn't mention this last time, so I should put this disclaimer here. I'm not saying these should be this expensive. We're just giving you the data the way it is right now and how much they're going for. So I'm not saying, oh, I like that they're this expensive, because frankly, while they're expensive, they're not expensive enough to like buy John a new house. Like, they're not going to help you with your day-to-day bills with how expensive bills are. Like, as an adult, we did the calculations and you would not be like, oh, I can buy a house or pay off my rent or buy a new car. No, it's just in this weird, range where it's like, oh, it's expensive for a retro game, but you're not going to retire off these.
No, probably not.
But either way, though, we do want to take a look at them because they're still cool nonetheless, though. And what I like about these games, too, is these weren't games that you sought out like, oh, I'm a retro hunter, I'm going to try to get these games because they're cheap and, sell them off later. You love these games, and that's why you got them in the bargain bin, because we talked about this last time, you're a bargain bin hunter.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
But not in a hunter in a way where you're like, oh, this game's going to be terrible, but that value later. No, more so like, oh, maybe it's good, maybe it's not, but I only paid 20 for it.
Yeah, I've got $20. I want a new fighting game. I haven't had I haven't picked up a picked up a fighting game or an RPG in 5 whole minutes. So let me see how far this will get me. That kind of thing.
Exactly. So the first game that we're taking a look at is Street Fighter II: The Collection. Now, what is this game? Because it's Street Fighter 2, I know, like, obviously the title, but I don't know much about Street Fighter. I really don't. So why is this called Street Fighter 2: The Collection?
Well, this is actually Street Fighter Collection 2, because as we joked before, Street Fighter 2
we joked about this in the Dreamcast video.
Right, with all its updates and versions, Street Fighter 2 became a series unto itself.
Right.
So strangely, Collection 2 actually has the earlier games in the Street Fighter 2 series.
Oh, so it has most of the games that were Street Fighter 2, and then here's this, here's the tagline with the new update of characters.
Right, so Collection 2 contained the World Warrior, which was the first version, the original version of Street Fighter 2.
Okay.
Champion Edition, which added the bosses and tweaked some of the moves. Mm-hmm. And then it also Hyper Fighting, or Turbo, depending on what region you're playing it in, which was basically just Champion Edition with updated speed, some new moves, things like that. So it's the first 3 versions of Street Fighter 2.
Okay. And this one, as you saw down below with the banner, going for $30 to $59. So I'm assuming it's going that high. Like, it fluctuates because, again, we talked about this last time with the Dreamcast video, depends on things like the time of day, who's bidding wars, bidding psychology, things like that. But I'm assuming it's going for that much because it's a good port, I'd imagine.
Yeah, well, this was one of the first times that a true arcade port was available, because the Super Nintendo and the Genesis ports of World Warrior and Turbo were scaled down.
Wait a minute, so this is not a port of the Super Nintendo games?
No, this is a direct arcade port. And that's I remember being excited to buy this because I knew that while the Super Nintendo and Genesis home ports in their day, to be able to play Street Fighter 2 at home at all was a big deal.
Right.
I remember, well, like the arcade had bigger graphics, better animation, and
this
things
wasn't
like that.
available on the Dreamcast?
I don't think I'm trying to remember. As I said, this is where my memory gets a little hazy.
Okay.
If anything, there was a Japan. There might have been a Japan only one, but I honestly don't think so.
Okay, so then so for you, it was exciting for you because you got the arcade at home, and
Right.
you're a huge arcade kid.
Yes.
Okay, so that's actually really cool. And again, we mentioned this last time with our Dreamcast stuff. It's a fighting game, not a lot of story to follow, pretty much none. And I say that only because you can definitely get the Japanese version for cheaper. So definitely, if you are a collector, you want to just play the game to play the game, you can just get a Japanese version, get Japanese PS1, or probably get a Japanese PS2, get more mileage out of that,
Right.
and get this game. So that's pretty cool to think about as well if you're trying to collect some of these games. And the next game we're taking a look at has a really long name, Street Fighter EX2 Plus, and $50 to $60. Now, what is Street Fighter EX2 Plus?
Okay, so this was Street Fighter's first foray into the 3D games. Now, by now, the 3D fighter arena was dominated by things like Tekken.
I liked the Tekken. I know. I liked Tekken.
Tekken, always a classic. But this was Street Fighter trying their hand at 3D games. I mean, this was kind of a niche thing. You don't hear much about it. Again, it was an early attempt.
Or was it bad?
No, it was pretty good. It was pretty good in its own way. I didn't super get into this series, the EX series. I think.
Then, sorry to interrupt. This one is EX2, so there's an EX1.
Right. There's an EX1, and then there's an EX Plus Alpha, and then there's EX2. Then I think EX2 was the arcade version, and then EX2 Plus, if I'm not too much mistaken, is the home port that added a few things.
Okay. So the reason why I'm confused, I mentioned this last video. I'm not into Street Fighter. I don't hate it. I'm just not really into it. So I get all these names, and it's like a whirlwind kick in my brain. I'm like,
Street Fighter EX2 Plus Alpha Plus 7.
Minus
Beta carotene.
PEMDAS. So like I just get really confused. So so 3D Fighter, the $50 to $60. I'm going to also assume the Japanese version is significantly cheaper. And again, there's no story to this one, right? You would know this more than I would. No story to speak of.
Really. It's just it's just beat up M. Bison.
Good.
Stick with the formula.
Yeah, right. It works if it ain't broke. So and again, 50 to 60. It doesn't fluctuate as much as some of the other ones we've talked about, so that is good to know because it is kind of weird when we tell you, oh, it's 25 to 70. It's like, wait, what? So at least this one is
range,
more consistent. So but of course we haven't said this yet. If you're gonna find this and it is significantly cheaper, but it is disc only, jump on that because hey, you can easily piecemeal a collection together. You know what I mean? Like you can go to a con, you can get the manual, you can get the jewel case separately, and it can come together a lot cheaper than trying to buy one for 50, 60.
Exactly.
So definitely look into that as well if you want to collect some of these games. And the next one we're talking about is Rival Schools. Now this one I'm very interested in, not because I know anything about Rival Schools, but because it is a twofer, two disc, John. So why do you think? Well, first of all, you still got this one for $20, 25 at most, probably.
Right. Yeah. It was the 20-25%.
Why did you pick this one up? Because the other ones we can tell you like Street Fighter, but this one, not one that I would say is well known.
It's lesser known. It's in universe with Street Fighter.
Oh, okay.
For whatever that's worth, because Street Fighter has more of a story than people realize, although it's not super important to your enjoyment of the game. But it's in universe like Sakura, everyone's favorite schoolgirl from the Alpha series, was actually made like a kind of a crossover appearance. This is the school that she goes to, and her friends are also into street fighting and things like that. So it's and the 2-disc bit. I think one of them is a different. I think there were 2 different versions of the game that in the port I think were included that you could play either one. One was kind of, but I think it was so incremental that rather than release it as a whole different thing, they just threw it in with. And again, my memory is still kind of hazy, but I do think that it was just a different port or a different take on it.
And again, 70 to 100 really depends on, I guess, really, like I said, the clientele, like who's bidding on this. And I say that because of the fact that, again, if you're going to get in bidding wars, then yeah, it probably get pushed up to 100. But perhaps if you find it maybe during the day, light day, depending on, because what'll happen is too, if it's a U.S. seller and you're in the UK, different hours, maybe you somehow, or vice versa, maybe you somehow get a good deal on it. But another one that I would suggest, because it's a fighting game, get the Japanese version. significantly cheaper than the $70 to $100 version, so which is the US version. So again, another case where you could probably go for the Japanese side of things. And if you haven't noticed yet, there's a theme with John, and it's fighters, really. Because you do have some RPGs, but for the most part, though, the ones that you have that I noticed were actually cheap RPGs, funnily enough, like for the PS1 and Dreamcast. So when looking at this, somehow the fighters, I guess I'm assuming, got lower production runs, or at the very least, with Street Fighter, a lot more fans come into the fandom, buy more copies. Now all of a sudden the prices are starting to rise.
Right. Yeah, I think it was limited run, limited printing, but it could really, especially with the fighting games, it could go either way.
Yeah.
Either it's incredibly hard to find, or there were so many copies of them that they're just basically lying around for. I'm trying to think of one of the others that I think it was one of the King of Fighters ports for the PSX.
Oh, the
99.
Sorry, I was confused. I was thinking of Evolution for the Dreamcast, because you have that. It's actually pretty cheap.
Right, and Evolution is a port of 99.
So then we were both right.
Exactly, in our own special way. But yeah, so it's feast or famine with the fighting games. Either they're super rare and super limited print, or there's just tons and tons of copies that they were trying to get rid of.
Yeah. Now, before we move on to the final two, I want to talk about Darkstalkers III, which is actually $35 to $50. So the reason why it's a special inclusion here is because it's really not on the list, but it's Darkstalkers, and John really likes Darkstalkers. I wanted you to rant about this for a few minutes. So why Darkstalkers 3? Was this your first look at the series, or did you get the first one first?
I got the first one first. My first exposure to the series was, besides like seeing it in like Game Pro or whatever, when magazines I was reading back as a kid, was that I saw, because Morrigan, it was basically the Ryu of Darkstalkers, is that she's in almost every crossover game that Capcom ever did.
Oh, Marvel's Capcom. That's where I know her from before
Darkstalkers. I first saw her in Marvel's Capcom 1, and then I looked into what series she was from, and turned out it was really awesome. Like I said, it's has a very cartoonish animation style, which I appreciate.
So it's a fighting game, but with monsters.
With monsters,
but mostly Western monsters. Like no Onryu or Kappa or anything like that.
No, more Western type stuff. You know, vampires, succubi, werewolves.
I think
mummies.
I pronounced it wrong. I was thinking of like the Grudge ghosts. Onryu.
Onryu?
Yeah, I was saying Onryu. No, but yeah, no. So
no Samara.
Yeah, no. But that's what. Yeah, no. Or that's what I'm thinking. Like Sadako, the Grudge house.
Kayako. Very basic Universal Studios monsters.
Yes, exactly. Things. Yes. So that's Darkstalkers in a nutshell. And now we're talking about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So, we're going to spoil another video just because I want to point out how lucky this man is.
Because you're my friend?
Yes. But let me explain to you this, everyone. So he has JoJo's Bizarre Adventure on the PS1, currently at $100, as you see down below. He also has it on the Dreamcast. The Sega Dreamcast. So you got, for $20 a pop, both versions of the game. My question to you is, which one did you get first?
The PSX one, because I actually didn't have the Dreamcast at the time that I got the PSX version.
All right.
That one was really just, like I said, I had an extra 20 burning a hole in my pocket. I was at the mall, and 17-year-old me said, wow, actually I'm going to be completely honest on the reason I picked it up. I had no idea what JoJo is. I saw that it was a Street Fighter Alpha-esque fighter, and also there was a harem girl character called Midler, who I think was invented basically for the game. I think in the manga you only see her like dead body for like 2 seconds. But in any event, so that was what sold me on it. And like I said, at that point I didn't know much. Now
that John knows about JoJo and the fact that they all pose in the way that they pose and they dress the way that they dress, he now realizes it was interesting that he chose it because of a woman in the game. But anyway,
but the PSX version though, like I said, is really, I would say, even though the Dreamcast version is closer to the arcade,
yes,
the story mode in the PSX version is superlative. It follows Volume 3 or Part 3 of the manga to a T. It's full of mini games and a variety of different things.
And if some people are confused, the reason why I'm hyped about it, and John is as well, but in a different way, at the time the game came out, both on the Dreamcast and on the PS1, JoJo did not really exist in America. By that time, they were at Part 3, I think getting closer, if not at Part 4. So at the time, there was the manga in Japan. There was no manga in the U.S. They created an OVA series, which is basically a series of anime movies, just to promote the show, which actually did come out in the U.S. John, you actually got to see some of those.
Yes.
But They did not have JoJo for the masses. Even by the mid 2000s, they had Part 3 in the U.S. manga, but no Part 1, 2, or 4 and onward. So finally, 2012, they came out with the anime. Then it came out in the U.S. starting in 2014, and now through streaming services and things like that, you can watch up to Part 5. That is crazy. Even though I'm newer to the fandom, I've still, for JoJo, I've still seen it in passing every now and again, but I've gone, well, I feel like I'm jumping right in the middle of it.
And because...
you felt that way,
yes,
too.
I did feel like I was coming in in the middle of a story. Like, it seemed like these characters, this specific set of characters, I think they were introduced, other than Joseph and Dio. I did feel like I was coming in the middle of a series, and I did get a sense that
they kind of knew each other.
Knew each other, and that JoJo was more of a thing. Like I said, I thought that it was just a fighting game. I didn't even know it was a manga.
Like a rival schools thing.
Right. I didn't even realize that there was a manga. I thought it was just a fighting game.
Yeah.
And so I was surprised to learn that, this is actually a big, long-running thing in Japan.
And for any younger people, the internet was scarce with information at the time. It wasn't prehistoric, but it was also not the way it is today, where literally you could just ask someone on Twitter after seeing their user profile, being like, "Oh, is that JoJo? Is this a JoJo reference?" Memes do not exist. The word meme and memes do not exist.
Well, no, this was 2001, so we had just gotten All Your Base.
Yeah,
to give you a frame of reference.
Yeah,
there,
and again, some kids are like, "All your what?"
Yeah.
Like, you want to feel old, Grandpa?
Exactly. It's a prehistoric meme.
No, so it's really cool that not only do we get this game in the U.S., that John has it and he has both versions.
Because I was also a big one for buying games twice. It's like, well, I have it for this. I have it just like back in the day, because I said that by virtue of when I grew up, there were cassettes and CDs, and I would have to have
And to be
both.
fair to this medium, you knew that with the PS1 version, you might be getting a fun experience, but with the Dreamcast version, you're getting the full arcade experience.
Right.
So you would feel inclined to get the Dreamcast version if you already had gotten the PS1 version.
Yeah. Well, and in truth, though, I think the version to get, even though it has load times and may not be frame and animation wise a perfect copy of the arcade, PS1 version is where it's at. Like I said, the Dreamcast version may be a perfect conversion of the arcade, but that's kind of it. There's no extras.
And I will say, though, another cheap way to get this, and I'm so happy that we've actually gotten to this point where we can talk about this. I didn't talk about this in the Dreamcast video, but I'll probably have it in the description box down below. You can also get it digitally through the PS3. I believe it's still on the market. It shouldn't be any more than 10 or 15 bucks. I'm pretty sure it's even less than that, but you'll see it up on the banner, and it's an HD remake.
Oh.
So HD remake. They're enhanced, but you can also turn all that off in the settings. And yeah, it's available on the PS3. So you can still get this game even if you don't want to pay, $100 or more. Because even the Japanese version, you might think it's cheaper, and it is cheaper, but not significantly so, because people are then jumping onto that version. Because, of course, no one knew about JoJo. So I'm sure it's in a factory somewhere, probably in a storage locker, but they're not available to the public, so that's why they're so expensive. So that still is another way to play it. If you're interested in playing the game and not just collecting it, you can go through the PS3, PSN, and also get the Japanese version as well. John, people talk about Holy Grails sometimes, and this man over here found one a while ago. How many years ago at this point? 18? 19?
Would have been 17.
17 years ago. He got for was it $20? Sick man.
Yeah, it was like it was definitely no more than 20, 25.
The Adventures of Tron Bob, which is currently $100 to $300. I put $100 in the off chance that you're buying it disc only. $100 to $300. Now, if people don't know the Misadventures of Tron Bob or Trombone, I would argue.
Trombone.
I mean, trombone.
The wordplay is there, but yeah.
But anyway, so it's like Mega Man and bass. It's like bass.
Right, roll, rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, Mega and roll.
Mega and roll. So we want to talk about jokes that were lost in translation.
So this game is a prequel to Mega Man Legends, but you technically don't have to play Legends to play this game, but it does star the character of Tron Bon, who was in Mega Man Legends.
Right.
So, from the looks of it, people bought Mega Man Legends, and Capcom wanted to sweeten the deal with this game, so they said if you get this game, you can get a demo for Mega Man Legends 2. And it seems like, just due to how expensive it is now, people didn't bite even with that on the line. But again, it's hard to tell how many copies do exist, because your copy was bought during a sale, because it was $20, 25 at most, probably. but did that end up going to HQ? Do they know how many copies were sold from it? We don't know some of that info. You know?
And that was also it might have been clearancing out because I remember getting that late. I got that one late in the game, like 2002.
Yeah.
So by then the PS2 was already out.
Yeah.
So the PS1 was basically clearancing out.
Yeah.
So there was that really is why around that time is when I got a lot of these rare finds, is because they were at the time. They were just trying to get them off the shelf.
Exactly, and that's, if you're a collector, I definitely would suggest, go for games you like, because he likes all these games. That's what matters the most. Because if you didn't like Tron Bob, I'd be like, dude, just sell it. You don't like it. But you really do enjoy it. You had fun with it, playing it when you were younger, and you still do. So, for me, I feel like, go for something you're going to enjoy, but also have the thought in your back of your mind, like, if I ever did want to sell this, you're going for the cheaper things. Don't go for the limited editions, because, you know, John, a lot of people nowadays, they go for limited editions that aren't so limited. Because they don't say limited, they say special, and they're not, only 1,000. They are only limited to how many people buy them. So, John, math question. John isn't a math guy, but math question. If 4 million people buy a special edition, is it really limited?
Not really. I mean, it's all relative.
That's what I'm trying to say. So, basically, go for something you like. Don't just go for something that you think, oh, it's a special edition, it's going to be worth something one day because I'm spending $200 on it. Probably go for the thing that's $20 that might not be selling that well, that you might enjoy, have a good time with. And then if you'd want to one day, sell the game.
And plus the thing is, the things that you think are going to be appreciate in value and be big sellers usually aren't.
Yeah.
It's the weird niche stuff.
Because John had no idea when he was buying these that they were going to be rare one day or expensive one day. He just thought, ooh, I have $20 to burn. Looks like a good game.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a point where I was, like I said, super into fighting games, super into all things Capcom. So
and it's funny that even though it's Capcom, the Tron Bob one is the one that seems off compared to everything on this list.
It's not a fighting game.
Yeah, exactly. It's the one that's different. Now, but what about it drew you in other than it being $20? Was it because I know you liked Mega Man Legends at the time.
I really love the character, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
Is that because Tron Bob, and this is again where the crossover game introduces you. We were just talking about how Marvel vs. Capcom 1 introduced me to Morrigan.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was where I first found out about Tron Bob.
Oh, so, then I must know about her, and I didn't know.
Well, yeah, she's in MVC too.
Oh, okay.
And she was a favorite of mine. So then, in true to form, I went back and as I said, I tend to get into things late in the game, long after everybody else has already experienced it, and then. I really love the character, and the Mega Man Legend games were cool. They were basically like adventure.
And you got them on the PS1.
Yes.
Okay.
So I liked her. I liked the character. I thought she was cool, and I thought it was neat that they gave like a villain. She's a villain.
Anti-hero.
Yeah, and a villain / anti-hero.
Yeah.
And they gave her own game, and I thought that was pretty cool.
And I wonder if maybe that's why she didn't sell so well, because maybe kids at the time were like, but she's the villain, and
kids don't mind. Kids would love to play as the villain. Honestly.
Okay.
If I know kids correctly.
I'm assuming it didn't sell that well. That's why, because.
It was a niche, like I said, and I know I've been tossing that word around a lot, but it was it was one of those games that has a small but very loyal fan base.
It's interesting. Now I hear people talking about Mega Man Legends with high praise, but I hear that at the time Mega Man Legends was mixed.
Yeah, you know what it is? Because it was also...
Because you were around at the time, so
yes.
It was mixed reviews from the fandom.
You know what it was? It was a genre bender. Like, Mega Man is a side-scroller, and then Mega Man Legends was like a 3D, third-person sort of adventure game.
And people seemingly, not people as in everyone, but there were some people at the time who were like, no.
It might have been. And the thing is, I don't really remember a very strong reaction to it either way. I do remember that it had a very strong cult following. But you didn't hear, I didn't really hear people saying, oh, Mega Man Legends sucks. It was just kind of a more obscure take on it. Or either that or I slept through the
hate.
I slept on it, I slept on it. But having been someone who was on GameFAQs in the early 2000s when I was 16, 17.
You didn't see major hate.
If people were mad about something, I knew about it.
Right.
Know?
Okay, so people didn't hate it, but I guess, like you said, there really wasn't much of a following at the time. And presumably, that's why the Tron Bob game did not do so well, sales-wise. And now that more people are appreciating it, because that happens a lot with games, even the Legend of Zelda games on the N64, there was some mixed review to hate for some people, and now everyone says, you mean the best games ever? With time, things really...
certain things, I said, I feel like that's another topic for another day, but certain games are vindicated by history. There's a lot of games kind of looking at you here, Final Fantasy IX. You know that people, you know, not a huge. I remember that people being lukewarm toward it when it first came out, but in hindsight,
it's so many underrated lists.
You grow up, you know, your tastes change. It ends up being released on a virtual console.
Or even just kids growing up.
Right.
Now, who didn't have the experience of it at the time, look back on it and they play it and they're like, oh my god, that's amazing. Now, speaking of, you mentioned digital stores, thankfully, if you want to play this game and you're thinking, but I don't have $300, that's okay. You can actually get it on the PS3, the PSN network for literally $4. $4 to $8. So if you just want to play this game, you want to have a good time, $4 to $8. So honestly, I'm really happy that with these last two games, there are ways to play them if you don't have that kind of cash to them. Because the other ones, I would argue they're expensive compared to the general PlayStation 1 game, but at least you can save up and put that kind of money out. But for $300 for me, that's a lot of money to put down.
And truthfully, like I said, Tron Bomb was a unique game. A lot of these are ports too. So they're and in the case of like the Street Fighter compendiums,
and there's been re-releases of those.
They've been re-released so many times that there's you said even like Street Fighter Collection 2, there are definitely better and smoother ports than this one. But just as a collector's item, you know, just to have. If you want to play the game, there's a virtually unlimited amount of ways that you can do it.
And that's again a great thing with some of these older games. So, love you all so much. Thank you so much for watching. We're gonna try to get John on to maybe do something like this again, but we have to take a look at that tote. We're gonna take a look in that tote.
We'll crack it
open and see what kind of games in your collection we can find and what kind of videos we can do. So if you like these videos, please remember to like and subscribe. Comment down below and talk about some games that you have in your collection that might either be expensive, rare, or in general are near and dear to your heart. So thank you all. Love you all. Take care and tune in next time for something completely different. All right, guys. So see ya.